You're listening to the Cash Podcast, creating affluence, success, and happiness with your financial surgeon, Adam Koch, president and portfolio manager at Libertas Wealth Management Group at libertaswealth.com.
All right, everyone, I'm here today with RachelAlley and Tomko of Millennium Group of Keller Williams Capital Partners, and today we're going to be talking about buying or selling a home in a virtual world. But before we get started, as always, a few housekeeping items. If this is your first time listening or watching, then thank you for joining us. The Cash Podcast is produced weekly, and as stated in the intro, Cash stands for creating affluence, success, and happiness, and that's our mission. My hope is for you to learn a little bit more each and every episode so that you become more successful, wealthier, happier, and more educated than you were before you started listening today. So come back often. Feel free to subscribe on iTunes and YouTube. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam Koch and on Instagram at Financial Surgeon. Last but not least, all links, visuals, charts, and other educational resources are on our website. So that's it with the formalities. Let's go ahead and get started. So before we even get into our discussion, I just want to briefly introduce these two rock stars. Jonathan is the principal of Millennium Group and focuses on coaching, educating. He's also the architect for the service experience they've created for their clients. He's really passionate about advising people on how to build diversified personal wealth and create financial independence through real estate acquisition, whether that's for investment purposes or stepping up to your next dream home. Jonathan has a bachelor's degree in business administration and management from Kent State University, and he volunteers for the United Way and sits on the Nationwide Children's Hospital Development Board. He has a large Italian family, which means I need to invite myself over for dinner and wine someday. And he enjoys studying business, self-improvement, and spending quality time with his family and friends. RachelAlley owns Millennium Group and works in tandem with Jonathan. She acts as the team leader and is passionate about providing transparent communication, creating an authentic client experience through clarity of process, honesty, and integrity. She was given the Excellence Award through the Columbus Board of Realtors and was also honored with their 10 Under 40 Award, which is given only to those who have demonstrated immense success early in their careers. Just last year, she closed 130 real estate transactions, and as a team, they have well over 100 perfect 5-star online reviews and recommendations. Millennium Group is a top 50 team in the Central Ohio real estate market and a top 100 in the Midwest region. So Jonathan, Rachel, thank you for taking the time to join me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're happy to be here.
Thank you. Very excited.
For sure. Let's get into the questions here. So it's a crazy time, but let's stay cup half full here. How in the world are you buying or selling a home for a client in a virtual world?
It definitely looks different. I think part of it is getting creative with how you deliver high-level service and really extracting the expectations of the clients. You know, there's a good mix of people that have been through the experience of buying or selling a home in the past, and there's another, half of the market that might be a first-time home buyer, and this is, how they're going to gauge their experience moving forward. And so with everybody reacting to the circumstances differently and having a different comfort level, it's our job to make sure that we can wrap our service around exactly what they're looking for to fulfill their expectations. And it's our job to get that up front, because we really can do it two different ways. We can do it virtually, or we can kind of do it the old school way. But right now, things have, obviously switched to virtual, and that means that we have to adapt, put our head down, and make sure that we maintain our service standards and meet the market demands.
Yeah. Do you feel like the trends changed at all?
I think we've been on this trajectory for a while. The old school way of doing business and real estate was very physical based. So being present, physical, building those relationships with people that way. As we've evolved and technology has come into play with the landscape of the real estate industry, we've really become more digitally based over the last few years and physically enhanced. So our team specifically has adapted that and adopted that in our business model. And so what we've done is we've just enhanced that with the current circumstance, providing a little bit more of a virtual foundation to support our clients. We're still connecting with them. It just looks a little bit differently now. And then we enhance that physically when we're out with them, showing homes or walking through listings and meeting with clients. So
that's interesting that it's already kind of been evolving that way. I guess I wouldn't have thought of that, but yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, well, walk me through it. Let's just say, I come to you, I want to buy or sell my home. What's that look like?
Today, I would ask you questions, right? I would want to know what your experience is going to be like. I mean, moving into virtual, realtors are no longer like the keepers of the information anymore, because you could just go on Zillow, you can go online, you go to realtor.com. So we really have to see what their goal is, what their plan is. We always have an initial consultation, right? That's something that we take very, very seriously. And we think that that's, the client deserves that. It's not as transactional and casual as a lot of people seem to portray it, especially when you're moving maybe the largest asset that they'll ever have or purchase. And so we now, out of convenience, have adapted that we can do some things virtually. We moved our booklets to virtual. We moved some of our initial consultations, whether for its safety reasons or convenience, to a Zoom call or a Google Hangout. Right? So we're still trying to maintain the service levels that our clients and their friends and family expect, but we have to make sure that we're listening to the market. We have to make sure that we're leading from the front on the new way of conducting business and being flexible to meet the expectations.
Yeah. And I would say between buyers and sellers, so making sure that we're having those consultations, we're doing it virtual. It's been very convenient. It's been great for our agents as well. And that still allows the client to talk about what their expectations are, what their needs are in this transition. We understand their motivation, what their goals are, and then we can cater our approach to that without having to physically be together. And just like you and I are here today having this conversation,
right.
It's very similar. So we get to pick up on what's important to you. We get to see your face. We get to hear your language and the tone of your voice. So that helps us evolve into that and helps us move that a little bit more virtual, but we still have that personal connection.
Okay. Well, speaking of personal connection, let's face it. I mean, real estate is a relationship business, right? I mean, you're in the relationship business. I mean, how do you maintain that normal relationship-based business while at the same time selling someone's home as you go through that process?
Yeah, I would say communication. It always comes down to communication. It's so funny because with Facebook and social media, I feel like we maintain connections with people that we probably never would have before.
That's a good point.
So we're a little bit more exposed. We get to see when our clients have milestones in their life, and we get to see all of those personal things and celebrate those things with them. We're actually more exposed now than I think we've probably ever been to what's happening in their life. So just staying connected and staying in communication with them, calling and checking up on them. It's so funny. People think that people don't appreciate phone calls or appreciate messages or appreciate being reached out to anymore. But we've had so much success. They love it when we call. They're like, thank you so much for checking in on us. Thank you for just seeing how we're doing. And so that's a way to maintain those relationships as we move through what has been probably one of the most challenging situations we've been as far as socializing goes. Because instead of happy hours, maybe we're having virtual happy hours.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little different, you know?
Yeah, it's good to hear because, I mean, like you go through the grocery store and people don't make eye contact anymore because they're wearing a mask and you can't see facial expressions. But it's good to hear people actually want to talk on the phones.
They're craving that connection. And so we just really have enhanced our communication to be able to provide that.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Jonathan?
I think the same principles of what's value in a relationship are going to apply, right? Taking an interest in somebody, learning about them, what's important to them, why that's important. And we have a service that can help offer solutions and can help them achieve those things. And so as we continue to learn about them, it just might not be across the table having a cup of coffee. It might be something like this, but we want to take the exact same approach because that's how they feel. I mean, that is really what is going to make them respond and make them react and make them want to do business with you or want to just have the attention together. That
makes sense. Yeah. Just ensure we're on the topic again, kind of talking about face-to-face interaction and obviously how limited we need to be. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, I'm thinking me here, I'm not sure how important they are in the grand scheme of things, but are open houses even being implemented today? I mean, is that a thing?
So there was a pretty hard stop on them when everything got shut down, just because the exposure with multiple people coming through a home. We are starting to see open houses kind of open up a little bit. And so I'm curious to see how that takes with the current situation. People are different. It's just how they're responding to the situation. Some people are very conservative and some people are a little bit more open about it. And so open houses are a great tool for listings, for exposure. They're a great tool for buyers as they start to step into the market and explore. So it's fun to hold the house open. It's great to get feedback for the sellers on a mass level because, we're getting a ton of people through the property. And so we get to hear what they're saying about it. And that allows us to educate and advise our seller clients. But as far as a direct sale from an open house for that listing, I think the statistic, at least it was last time I checked, was about 1% of homes actually sell to a buyer that came through an open house. So statistically wise, it doesn't directly impact the actual sale of the property. I think what it does is it impacts that exposure. You never know where a buyer is going to come from for a listing. And it allows us, again, to get that feedback for our seller clients so that we can be as proactive in this market as it continues to move over the next few months.
Okay. So I had I think I was telling you before we got on the call that I had a friend, and then my parents also sold their house. A friend of mine bought a house using FaceTime. I want to say sight unseen, but they literally had not walked through the house, decided they wanted it, went into contract and closed, and saw the house for the first time when they moved in. Is this something that you're seeing more of? It blew my mind. I mean, I've personally never purchased a house like this before, but it sounds crazy on the surface. But is it common or becoming more common?
I would say it's becoming more common.
I agree. I think it was a tactic that maybe investors used to use, right? If they were out of town. So I think on the real estate side, people were fairly familiar. You could adapt and adjust and make that happen if that was the hand you were dealt. I also think it depends on the person.
Okay.
We knew our house before we even set foot in it, the one that we currently live in, right?
I bought it by driving by it and I fell in love with the front. That was it for me. I didn't really care what the inside looked like.
We also are a little house numb compared to an average consumer. So it's slightly different, right?
Yeah.
But it is more common to quickly answer your question. Yeah, you'll see it for convenience reasons. I mean, if you're working with an executive or working with somebody who travels, or if you're working with a doctor, a physician, their window of opportunity to go to our houses isn't like, hey, let's just, set up 5 in a day. They're a little bit more precise. They're a little bit more accurate, right? Their decision-making is a little bit different. And again, if they're not a first-time home buyer, they may have a different appetite for some of those risks. So some people are a little bit more comfortable. And you see everything that's slowly becoming a little bit digitized right now. And you're going to see a little bit new business practices moving in that direction. I don't think it's going to replace a lot of things, but I do think that everybody is a lot more open-minded than before, right? I was listening to the Mother's Day one, and we know what your lovely wife said. She said, I'm a lot more flexible than I thought I was, right? So going through this, I feel like it's going to be pretty hard to be closed-minded moving forward as long as you maintain the practices and the pillars that we know are the best ways to do business.
Well, and also looking at how e-commerce has impacted just the retail market.
And
everybody's moved to shopping online and the convenience of that. They love sitting in their pajamas or their yoga pants on their couch and getting what they need. And I think real estate for a long time had caught up to that. Over the last few years, we've seen a lot more clients being comfortable with virtual tours, FaceTiming through a house before they even see it. We even had clients that were doing curb offers based off of photos on the MLS without even anyone stepping in the house. So like Jonathan said, it's really their appetite for that and their comfort level around that. But knowing that how everything's been trending with e-commerce and just the culture of shopping, how it's evolved, it makes sense that at some point it will apply to real estate. And I think this situation has allowed us to really get a little bit more comfortable with that.
Yeah, definitely created.
And they're also protected. I mean, there's contingencies for inspections and things like that where they'll get to physically go into the home and do their checks and balances. But with the inventory being so low and knowing that there's only so much on the market to look at and things go quickly, if they don't get there quick enough, they're choosing to use tools like virtual tours in order to make those quick decisions.
You mentioned the inventory is really low. I mean, I don't want to make you, give you an exact percentage because I don't even know if there is that data. But what's that look like right now? I mean, how many fewer houses are on the market than before all this started?
So we've actually stayed low on inventory for the last few years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Probably since about 2016, we've really started to tighten up. We saw at least what I would consider the tightest market in 2018. based on how things were trending. We've started to level out a little bit over these last couple of years, but it's still stayed in very high demand and low inventory, more of a seller's type of market.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's been tight. So inventory has continued to remain low. I think Columbus is a very unique market with the demographic of the city. So we have a ton of first-time home buyers, and they're all falling within a certain sweet spot of the market. And so that market has stayed very, very, very much in high demand. Different markets at different price points. It's funny, we always talk about market as a generality, but we look at it as different tiers of price points and how those markets are different here in the city. But it's stayed in very high demand. So it's tightened up the inventory because they go very quickly. And now that these people are buying the homes that are in that sweet spot, they're on that entry level and they're going to be there for what's the average age, 10 years. And the builders, when they started to build out, they were, I mean, we've seen new builds. Columbus is blowing up. It's awesome. New build communities everywhere, but they weren't necessarily building within the price range that hit that demand of the market. They've shifted in the last year and a half to where they've started to build out communities that cater to that. So we haven't quite seen it open up yet. It'll be interesting to see over the next few months how that changes once the impact and the economic ripple effect moves through.
Just because I'm curious, what about the other tiers? Do you have an opinion on how the other tiers have changed?
So luxury in Columbus, the higher end market, those homes still sit on the market quite a bit longer. Okay. We see inventory come on and off the market a couple times. Sometimes it takes a couple rounds to sell. The absorption rate for those higher tier price points are multiple months, where the absorption rate for maybe price points under $300,000 in single family homes are under a month in some areas. Wow. So yeah, it changes based on where that demand in the market is. That's
really interesting. Well, I'll kind of along those same lines, I'll change gears a little bit here, but what are your thoughts on record low interest rates that we're living in, this environment of really low interest rates that we're living in right now and buying a home? I mean, is that a catalyst at all? Have you found that to be one of the facets that people consider when they start going into the home buying process?
Yes, yeah. They are record low. It's an incredible advantage to people getting into the market. I don't think it gets a lot of attention from the consumer side because we're kind of used to it from the last maybe 2 or 3 years. They've stayed fairly low. Mm-hmm. And moving forward, I think we can expect a change just naturally. But for a first-time home buyer, their opportunity to get into a home and build equity, all in, taxes, insurance, interest, everything like that, is fairly comparable to their rent, if not less.
Right.
Right. And so when you look at that as a financial tool, it's a very wise move for somebody who's younger. I think maybe the challenge is the younger demographic, and I'm kind of still that in millennium range. But
can we all say that we are? Is that fine? I mean,
yeah, we are. You're right. We have commitment issues, right? So we don't want to sign our name to 30 years of anything. 30 years of a mortgage? Right. Heck no way, man. Absolutely not. So we have to kind of warm them up to that, right? And the good news is they get a lot of great advice. And when you really sit down and have that consultation, they'll understand it more than a commercial that they saw advertising a low interest rate. We can show them what that means. We can show them how to structure that tool and what that's going to look like and what that's going to do for them over the course of time. But short answer is, yeah, man, I think it's a great opportunity when you look at rents versus owning. And then we've had people that bought a house in some up and coming areas 2, 3, 4 years ago, and they made a considerable chunk of change with selling recently with values, right? And
yeah.
So there's a way to do it, but of course we have to educate the people and show them how to use those tools.
Well, okay. I think, my parents in the mid 90s, I always use this story with my clients. I think their interest rate was like 16%.
Crazy.
And it's so funny because when people are like, oh, interest rates are 4.5%, that seems they went up. And I'm thinking, this is nothing. This is cheap money.
You're right.
So it really impacts their affordability and what they can afford to purchase in a home. And I think that's why we've seen with these low interest rates, home values have started to go up because the affordability has opened up with these lower rates. So, we're at a 60-year low now. I would say
Right.
the only way we're going to go is up. I don't know what that is going to look like. I'm not an economist by any way, shape, or form, so it'll be interesting to see. But interest rates do impact affordability, and that'll impact the prices of the market when that does change.
Yeah, I think that interest rates being low, many people, when you go back to the 80s, paid more for their last car than they did for their house in the 80s. And then you got to figure if interest rates on mortgages were 16, then the interest rate on a CD was 18, and inflation was probably near 20. I mean, so it's just a completely different time than it was now. And I've got a few monitors here. I was just looking up. It looks like the 10-year yield, which is what I look at for mortgages, bottomed out on the 9th of March, and since then, I mean, it was a gap down. So I mean, it gapped down, gapped up like an island reserve, but it wasn't a reversal. It just gapped down, gapped up, and we've pretty much just gone sideways since then. So I mean, interest rates are so low right now, and not to say that they can't go lower, because I mean, you hear Jerome Powell talking about how he's taking it off the table, but I don't know. I mean, if things get worse with this economy, they could go lower, but I don't think that people should sit around on their hands waiting for that. I think you should focus more on the equity and the investment, depending on what your reasons for purchasing are. But that's just my 25 cents, because inflation, I can't say 10 cents or 2 cents. So Rachel, I mean, how are you pricing homes these days, considering social distancing rules? I know we talked about buying or selling a house by taking, your phone and doing the FaceTime thing, but I mean, I assume you're kind of allowed to go into homes now that things are being lifted with the quarantine. But I mean, how do you price a house with social distancing rules?
Yeah, so again, it depends on the comfort level of my clients, and I have that conversation with them up front. Usually we'll have a phone conversation or a Zoom conversation. We can start that way. It's very easy to educate clients about who we are, what we do, the benefits of working with us without having to even go to the house. So we can get all of that taken care of up front. What I still like to do is wander through the house, or at least tour the home, so that I can see what updates have they made. Are there any conditional issues? There's certain things that you can't necessarily see from photos or FaceTime that you would be able to pick up on when you're physically there. So for me to appropriately price a property, I still do like to do a tour. Whether or not the seller's there, that's perfectly up to them and their choice. Whether they want me to come with everything on,
hazmat suit.
I'm fine with that. Yep, pretty much. So I really just try to understand what their comfort level is around it, but I do like to put my eyes on the house. Do we have any pet odors? Does it smell like smoke? Do we have any conditional issues, things in the basement that we wouldn't see necessarily on a virtual tour? Different things that you can pick up on. And we want to make sure that we're being proactive enough with the seller and giving them the right advice before going to market in order to maximize their return and their net proceeds on that asset in the sale, because usually they're taking those proceeds and moving them into their next house, or they have bigger plans for that money. So that's what I've been doing. It's worked out well. My sellers are very receptive. They like and appreciate the precautions and the options that we do give them in order to sell in this market. But it's been great.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for me, I know that first of all, I'm colorblind. So, I mean, I struggle anyway with trying to imagine a space if it were my own. So, and then I'm colorblind. So, I mean, that's another issue. Then I'm a hot box. So if I walked into a house and it's 74 degrees, I'm already turned off. Throw in some smells, and I'm not buying. So I think that's probably crucial for you to be walking into these houses and making sure that the coast is clear before you let other people in.
Well, that helps us understand when we're looking at recent sales and comparable sales, where does this house fit in position with the rest of those, so that we can make sure we get as much activity as possible, pricing appropriately in order to get it sold, because that's usually the ultimate goal. And we know that the longer we sit on the market, it usually lowers the value. So make sure we're hitting the right value right out of the gate, and helping the sellers prepare the home for the market by bringing in the right resources that understand the safety concerns. We have really great vendors that we work with as well. So everybody's been very collaborative and helpful and supportive.
All right. And so given all that's going on right now, and I'm assuming some sort of change in value of homes, it's probably hard to tell. It's only been a couple months, right? But what would you say the opportunity is to buy or sell a home, and whether it's different on either side of the transaction right now?
I think the opportunity to buy is the interest rates, right? You're talking about owning something and building your equity versus renting. And you can come in and learn what that means and have a structured conversation on whether that's a good move for you right now. But the objective is money is cheap. How can we use that, as a financial tool? On the sell side, my opinion is equity, right? Capitalizing on the equity that you have. If we were to project out the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months for people that might be thinking that they'll move if they become empty nesters in the next 5 years, right? Nobody wants to pay those taxes if they don't have to any longer, if the kids are out of the house. Right. And so if you see prices level off because of the economic situation or how that reverberates over that time, well, that might lower your value and that might impact your equity. Right. And especially if you're moving down, that's even you're going to feel it in a larger caliber. Right. And so then if your equity's going to kind of move backwards and you have interest rates go up, that means that you'll have less buyers that can qualify to purchase that house.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Long and short of it is if you are thinking in the next 1 to 5 years, you were going to sell, I would have a home evaluation right now. I would assess your equity, and I would have a conversation with your financial team to see if maybe there's a way to hedge against that, and just see what's going to be best for you. I would bring it to light though, whether you do anything or not. I would still have the conversation because there's a lot of variables that are flying around right now, and we're going to feel it one way or another. So
just get an opinion, basically. Figure you don't have to pull the trigger, but at the very least,
know where you're at. Yep. Know what you know where you're at. Yeah. So that's my opinion on the buy and sell.
And then on a sell side, I would say, if you're in a home and you're looking to move up into a little bit more of that luxury tiered market and you're hitting that, your home values are in more of that sweet spot of the market now, it's a way for you to capitalize on selling at a peak value before we really start to feel the market impact. And then moving up into what we talked about a little bit earlier was a different type of market. So you can max out your equity there, and then you might have more buying power in the luxury market
that's
for a
interesting.
move up home.
Okay. Well, what about all those people who are listening to this that are just nervous about buying or selling right now? I mean, what would you guys tell them?
So really, that's a challenging conversation to have because everybody has their personal concerns, and so we address them. So the best that we can do is be understanding, be compassionate, while providing them the education that they need to make a good decision. We always talk about keeping people as logical as possible in a very emotional type of environment. Buying and selling a home is very emotional. Buying your home is something that you're going to see yourself in. You might grow into it. You might raise a family here. Selling a home, you have all these memories, so you have all the emotional value that's tethered to that. So buying and selling has always been a very emotional type of transaction. It's very different than what you might see in a commercial market or an investment market. So managing clients' emotions has always been on the forefront of what we do. And so just educating them and keeping them as logical as possible so that they can make the best decision for them and their family. And that's really a personal choice.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about getting the opinion, assessing your situation, and then just taking baby steps and not feeling like you've got to pull the trigger right away, just taking it slow.
Right. And we like to see ourselves not just as realtors who focus on sales and buying and selling houses and helping clients through transactions. We really want to be those real estate advisors. So staying connected with our clients, even calling them and saying, hey, you have equity in your home. It might be an opportunity for you to refinance and drop your PMI. That'll save you an additional X amount per month, which during this time might benefit you. So having conversations and really supporting our clients through everything is what we do. That's what we love.
I'm sure there's probably several people who probably don't pay much attention. Once they've purchased the home, that is, they probably don't pay much attention to when they might be able to get out of PMI if they're in that situation, or maybe they just forget about it just because they're busy with other areas of their life. I mean, especially right now, maybe there's opportunities for people to lower their payment because of a refinance due to lower interest rates, avoiding PMI. Property is assessed at a higher value while they've lost a job, and they're freaking out about the job, obviously. But obviously, there's income requirements, of course. We all know that. But it sounds like what we've learned here today is that, while things have changed, they've been changing even before this whole, coronavirus thing came about. It sounds like, virtually selling a home, or selling a home in a virtual world isn't all that bad after all. In fact, it sounds like it might become, I don't want to say a new normal permanently, but maybe some sort of hybrid in the end. And that there's lots of ways to price a home, there's a lot of ways to maintain that relationship and that high level of service, all while doing so in a record low interest rate environment when all home properties, I don't want to say they're depressed because they're not yet, and I don't know if they will be, but at a time when if you're selling here, then you're still buying here or vice versa. So it's not like, one of my pet peeves I know is when somebody asks me, well, hey, I don't want to sell, say in 2009, I don't want to sell my house because it's down in value. It's like, well, if you sell your house and it's down in value, you're going to buy something else that's down in value. So, I mean, everything, obviously certain markets fall more than others, but especially if you're going upstream, you might even find yourself in better shape if you're upgrading. I think when you go the other way, sometimes it might hurt a little bit more. But but is there anything else, I guess, that you'd add today?
I think that's a great point. I mean, the misconceptions of that. And so you bring up a really good point. And I think that's where the education helps tie all that together. And part of the consultation, part of the advisory role is to educate them and equip them so they're confident making the decision. And I love what you said, hybrid. I'm going to steal that.
Nice. Sounds good. All right, you two. Well, thanks so much for being here and for offering so much valuable information. Contact information for the two of you will be both on our website as well as on YouTube. I really do appreciate it, though. I think this has been fun. I think that everyone wants to know about real estate. I mean, I don't want to say everyone owns a home, but most people either own a home or they want to at some point. So hopefully our listeners got a lot out of this today, as well as those who are watching. So that's it for today. We realize there are thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to listen to ours. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and YouTube. Please feel free to share this podcast with your friends. And if you want more educational information, you can sign up at our website at libertaswealth.com to receive our screencasts, videos, and articles that we send out on a regular basis. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam Koch and Instagram at Financial Surgeon. So thank you so much again for joining us, you two, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. You are an industry leader. We're very grateful.
Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Cash Podcast with your financial surgeon, Adam Koch. To see any charts or images that were mentioned in this show, or to check out additional articles, videos, and other educational resources, head over to libertaswealth.com.